Bank manager refuses to serve black veteran. Dwayne Johnson witnesses it, and what he does will shock you. It was a typical Tuesday morning at a busy bank branch in downtown Atlanta. The air buzzed with the sounds of typing, soft conversations, and shuffling feet. In the corner, sitting quietly and unnoticed, was Dwayne Johnson. Dressed simply, he blended into the crowd. But he wasn't just another customer. He was the bank's largest shareholder, there to observe how things really worked when no one thought they were being watched. The automatic doors slid open, and in walked Marcus, a 42-year-old black veteran. His coat was worn, his shoes scuffed, but his eyes carried a flicker of hope. He clutched a small envelope, the weight of his struggles evident in his careful steps. Dwayne's sharp gaze locked on him instantly, sensing that this man's story was about to unfold in a way no one could predict. What happened next would not only shatter the day's routine, but spark a chain of events that no one in that bank would ever forget. Marcus stepped up to the counter, his movements careful and deliberate. Behind the glass, Rachel, a middle-aged teller with a practiced indifferent expression, glanced up. He greeted her with a quiet politeness, clutching his small envelope tightly. "I'd like to open an account, ma'am," he said softly, his voice steady but tinged with a nervous edge. He carefully placed the envelope on the counter, revealing the $150 from his government assistance check. Rachel's eyes flicked to the money, then back to Marcus. Her expression hardened. "Do you have $500? She asked bluntly, her tone cold. Marcus hesitated, startled by the question. "No, ma'am," he replied, his voice faltering. "This is all I have. I just need a safe place to keep it. I don't want to carry it around." Rachel let out a dry, humorless laugh, her words sharp enough to cut. "This isn't a charity," she said with a dismissive shake of her head. "If you don't have $500, we can't open an account for you. Maybe you should try somewhere else." The room seemed to freeze. A few nearby customers turned to watch, whispering among themselves. Their glances were quick but unmistakable. Judgmental, dismissive, and tinged with curiosity. Marcus stood there, motionless, his face a mask of quiet humiliation. His gaze dropped to the counter as he fought to steady himself. He gripped the edge tightly, willing himself to remain composed. But the weight of the moment was crushing. From his seat in the corner, Dwayne Johnson observed it all. His sharp eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. He could feel the sting of injustice in the air, and it ignited something in him. A fire that would not stay silent for long. As the uncomfortable silence lingered, a young voice broke through the tension. "I'll help him." All heads turned toward Emma, a new and earnest employee standing a few feet away. Her eyes, filled with quiet determination, locked onto Marcus. She had been watching the scene unfold, her heart sinking with every cruel word. Now she stepped forward, her voice steady despite the mounting pressure. Rachel's face tightened, her lips pursing into a sharp line. "Emma," she snapped, her tone dripping with authority. "This isn't your place. You know the policy. Don't involve yourself." But Emma didn't flinch. Her hands moved to the computer, her fingers poised to type. "Policies exist to help people," she said calmly, though her voice carried a strength that made those nearby pause. "And if they don't, maybe they're the problem." Rachel's glare grew colder. "If you go through with this, it'll be on you," she hissed, her voice low but threatening. Emma turned her attention back to Marcus, her resolve unshaken. "Sir," she said gently, addressing him directly now, "let's open that account for you. It'll only take a moment." Marcus looked at her, stunned. For a moment he couldn't speak, his emotions a mix of disbelief and gratitude. Emma's kindness felt like a lifeline in the sea of judgment and dismissal he had endured. Rachel crossed her arms, watching with thinly veiled disdain as Emma began processing the account. Around them, whispers rose again, this time tinged with curiosity and a hint of admiration. From his seat in the corner, Dwayne Johnson's sharp eyes softened slightly. He recognized courage when he saw it, and in that moment, Emma's quiet defiance stood out like a beacon of hope. Rachel, seething with frustration, grabbed the nearest phone. Her voice, sharp and clipped, cut through the murmurs in the room as she called for Diana, the branch manager. Within moments, Diana emerged from her office at the back of the bank. Her tailored suit, precise movements, and piercing gaze exuded authority. The room seemed to shift as she entered, her presence demanding immediate attention. "What's going on here?" Diana asked, her tone firm, as she approached the counter where Rachel and Emma stood. Rachel wasted no time recounting the situation, her words laced with disapproval. "Emma decided to handle this customer despite knowing the policy," she said, gesturing toward Marcus with an air of disdain. "He doesn't meet the $500 minimum, but she's insisting on opening an account for him." Diana's gaze flicked to Marcus for a brief moment, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to Emma, her face hardening. "Is this true, Emma?" Emma straightened her back, meeting Diana's gaze head-on. "Yes, ma'am," she said firmly. "I believe everyone deserves help, especially someone like him who just wants to keep his money safe." Diana's voice turned cold. "That's not your decision to make. Rules exist for a reason, and if you can't follow them, you have no place here." Emma's hands trembled slightly, but her resolve didn't waver. "With respect, ma'am," she said quietly, "if the rules stop us from helping someone in need, then maybe the rules are wrong." Diana's jaw tightened. Turning to Marcus, she delivered her judgment without hesitation. "Sir, this bank cannot assist you if you don't meet the minimum balance requirement. That's our policy." Marcus stood still, the words hitting him like a blow. His shoulders slumped and the faint glimmer of hope in his eyes disappeared. He glanced at Emma, offering her a faint, grateful smile that couldn't quite mask his pain. "Thank you," he whispered to her, his voice barely audible. Then, with slow, heavy steps, he turned and walked out of the bank, the weight of disappointment pressing down on him. In the corner, Dwayne Johnson sat motionless, his expression unreadable, but his sharp eyes tracked every moment. As Marcus pushed through the doors and disappeared into the street, something shifted in Dwayne's demeanor. His jaw tightened, his hands clasped together. The time for silent observation was over. The next morning, the bank hummed with its usual routine. Employees shuffled papers, phones rang in steady intervals, and customers moved through the line. It seemed like just another day, until the doors swung open, and Dwayne Johnson strode inside. This time, there was no mistaking his presence. Gone was the quiet observer from the day before. He walked with purpose, his broad frame exuding a quiet authority that immediately silenced the low murmur of voices in the room. Employees paused mid-task, their eyes widening as they recognized him. Dwayne stopped in the center of the lobby, his commanding gaze sweeping across the room before settling on Diana, who stood near her office. "Diana," he said firmly, his deep voice cutting through the air like a knife. "Come here, please." Diana froze for a moment, caught off guard. Then, straightening her blazer, she walked toward him, her polished demeanor intact. "Mr. Johnson," she greeted with a cautious smile. "What a surprise to see you here. Is there something I can assist you with?" Dwayne's expression remained stoic. "Yes, there is," he replied, his tone steady but heavy with meaning. "I was here yesterday, sitting right over there." He gestured toward the chair in the corner where he had silently observed the events of the previous day. Diana's smile faltered. A ripple of tension spread through the room as everyone waited for what came next. "I saw everything," Dwayne continued, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "I watched how your staff treated a man who simply wanted to open an account, a veteran, someone who has served this country, and what I witnessed was unacceptable. Diana opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. The room was so quiet that even the faint clicking of a keyboard seemed deafening. Dwayne's gaze sharpened, his tone unwavering. Policies are meant to serve people, not humiliate them. If your rules force someone in need to walk out of here feeling dismissed and degraded, then those rules are wrong. And the way you handled that situation, cold, indifferent, and completely devoid of compassion, was a failure of leadership. Diana's face turned pale, her composure cracking under the weight of his words. I was only enforcing the bank's policies," she stammered. "And as the largest shareholder of this bank," Dwayne said, his voice firm and final, "I'm enforcing a new policy. Leadership must embody the values of respect, empathy, and integrity. You've shown none of these. Effective immediately, you are dismissed from your position." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Diana stood frozen, her expression a mix of shock and disbelief. Around them, employees exchanged glances, unsure of what to say or do. Dwayne turned to face the rest of the staff, his tone softening slightly, but still resolute. "Let this be a reminder. This bank exists to serve people, not just those with wealth, but everyone who walks through these doors. That's the change we're making, starting today." In the crowd, Emma watched in quiet awe, her heart pounding. For the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope that her active courage hadn't been in vain. Later that evening, Marcus sat alone on a park bench, clutching the same envelope he had carried to the bank earlier. The bitter taste of rejection still lingered. He stared at the world passing by, wondering if there was anywhere he truly belonged. Then his phone buzzed. Hesitant, he picked it up, seeing an unfamiliar number. "Hello," he answered cautiously. "Mr. Marcus, this is Emma from the bank," came a warm, familiar voice. "I wanted to apologize for what happened yesterday. It wasn't right, and I hope you'll give us another chance. We'd like to invite you back to the bank tomorrow. Someone very important wants to meet you." Marcus was silent for a moment, his disbelief making it hard to respond. I'm not sure," he stammered. "I promise," Emma said gently. "Things will be different this time." The next day, Marcus walked back into the bank, his steps hesitant but lighter than before. Waiting for him near the entrance was Emma, her kind smile steady and welcoming. She led him to a private meeting room, where, to his astonishment, Dwayne Johnson was waiting. As Marcus entered, Dwayne stood up, extending his hand with a firm, respectful grip. "Marcus," Dwayne began, his voice genuine and steady, "I owe you an apology. What happened to you here was wrong. You deserved respect and dignity, and you didn't get it. For that, I'm deeply sorry." Marcus blinked, struggling to find words. Thank you, sir," he managed, his voice breaking slightly. Dwayne gestured toward a chair. "Let's make things right," he said. With Emma's help, Marcus opened a new account. No minimum balance, no barriers. As Emma processed the details, Marcus couldn't help but feel a weight lifting off his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen. But the surprises didn't end there. Dwayne leaned forward, his voice filled with purpose. "I want you to know that what happened to you has inspired change. Starting today, we're launching a program called New Horizons for Veterans. It's designed to help veterans like you get the support they deserve. You'll be the first to benefit from it." Marcus looked at him, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say," he whispered, his voice trembling with gratitude. "You don't have to say anything," Dwayne replied, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "This country owes you far more than I can ever repay. This is just the beginning." As Marcus left the bank that day, the small envelope in his pocket felt lighter than before. It wasn't just money he carried now. It was a renewed sense of hope, trust, and dignity. From the doorway, Dwayne watched him go, his expression reflective but resolute. Change had begun, and it was only the start. The next week, the bank was buzzing with anticipation. Employees and customers alike gathered in the lobby, their curiosity piqued by the sudden announcement of an important event. Standing at the center, commanding attention without effort, was Dwayne Johnson. He looked out at the crowd, his presence exuding both strength and warmth. "Today," he began, his deep voice filling the room, "this bank turns a new page. What happened here last week was unacceptable, but it also gave us an opportunity, a chance to redefine who we are and what we stand for." Behind him, a curtain dropped to reveal a gleaming new sign, United Hope Bank. The name sparkled in the light, reflecting a fresh vision and a commitment to change. "This is no longer just a bank," Dwayne continued. "This is a place for hope, for dignity, and for second chances. Starting today, we're introducing several key initiatives to ensure that everyone who walks through these doors feels supported and valued." The room was silent, all eyes and ears fixed on him. First, Dwayne announced, "All veterans will have access to free accounts with no minimum balance requirements. These men and women have given so much for this country, and it's time we give back." A ripple of applause spread through the crowd. "Second," he said, his voice steady, "we're introducing financial support programs for low-income individuals, ensuring that no one is turned away because of their circumstances." More applause, this time louder, more enthusiastic. "And finally," Dwayne added with a smile, "we'll offer free financial literacy courses to help people take control of their futures, no matter where they're starting from." The room erupted into cheers, the energy electric. Employees glanced at one another, their expressions filled with pride. Dwayne then turned to Emma, who stood at the edge of the crowd, her eyes wide with disbelief. Gesturing for her to join him, he said, "And I want to take a moment to recognize someone who embodies everything this new vision stands for, Emma." As Emma stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly, Dwayne's smile widened. "Emma showed us what true leadership looks like. She stood up for what was right, even when it wasn't easy. Today, I'm proud to announce her promotion to Head of Customer Care. She will lead this bank's efforts to ensure that empathy, courage, and respect remain at the heart of everything we do." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as the crowd burst into applause. She turned to Dwayne and whispered, "Thank you. I just wanted to do what was right." "And you did," Dwayne replied softly. As the applause continued, Dwayne addressed the crowd one final time. "This is just the beginning. United Hope Bank isn't just about money, it's about people. Together, we're building a future where no one is left behind." The cheers grew louder, the room filled with hope and excitement for what was to come. As Marcus stepped out of the bank, a renewed sense of hope filled his heart. For the first time in years, he felt respected, not judged or dismissed, but valued for who he was. The weight of his struggles felt lighter, and in its place was something he hadn't carried in a long time: dignity. Inside the bank, Dwayne Johnson addressed the staff and onlookers with a powerful message. A bank isn't just a place to store money, it's a place to restore hope. Policies are important, but they should never come at the cost of humanity. It's our duty to see people, to help them, and to create a future where everyone matters. He paused, looking around the room. Kindness is a small act, but its impact can be enormous. Stand up for what's right, no matter how difficult it may seem. Together, we can create ripples of change that will reach far beyond this moment. Applause filled the room, a wave of shared purpose and pride, Emma, standing nearby, felt her heart swell with gratitude. She knew this was more than just a victory for Marcus. It was a step toward transforming countless lives. This is a fictional story, but its message is profoundly real. Always choose compassion. Even the smallest act of kindness can create waves of change. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. Thank you for listening and for believing in the power of kindness.